Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Halloween film podcast episode. And this one is going to be a Halloween episode here. That's my worst impression. But yeah, it's going to be a Halloween special episode here to talk about one of my favorite films from the Universal monster films, The Wolfman from 1941. And we have a special guest here for tonight, and he's been a few of my my episodes from the previous years and for a while. And please welcome back to Ami and Sazzy.
Hello, everybody. Hey there.
As well, I gotta say, welcome back, Ami and Sazzy.
Good to be back. How have things been?
I've been doing good. What does that mean? Like meet by moonlight.
Ill met by moonlight. Shakespeare quote, but I figured the moonlight thing was appropriate for the theme.
Yeah, so yeah, I can't remember the last time I have you. Was it Abbott Costello Frankenstein, or was
it? Yeah.
Or was it -1?
I wasn't able to do the -1 video, unfortunately. But I think it was the Abbott Costello one.
Oh yeah, I think you did King Kong with me, the original 33.
That too.
Yeah, I think that's the last time we did. But I'm glad to have you back, and I'm glad we get to do this episode of one of my favorite monster characters of the Wolfman.
Yeah.
And I can't wait how I first discovered this. And this story is going to be long. I mean, I want to tell you how I first discovered this classic Harry's film. Get it? Harry's? And so I already know how I discovered this Wolfman character that was Abbott Costello Frankenstein. That was before I discovered his original film. And so yeah, I first discovered this character in Abbott Costello Meet Frankenstein. And yeah, it was one of my favorite, and I remember, like, before I discovered the original film, my uncle was like a Wolfman. I'm not kidding. My uncle really is a Wolfman guy. And
really?
Yep, I mean, I remember like growing up. I remember as a kid, I used to visit him in his apartment, and my uncle, he's just whenever time I enter in his apartment, he has a ton of wolf stuffs, like frames, little statues, and a little like a head model, like what are those called? Like a little head,
a bust.
A bust of a wolf, but it was antlers or horns to it, and
taxidermy.
Yeah, and yeah, he has a tons of wolf stuff, like some pictures and little stands, a little furnace stand of a wolf, and yeah, and he even has a cookie jar of the Wolfman of the 1941. I mean, and I got yes, and I haven't seen. I can't remember the last time I visited him in his place, but I definitely, yeah, I should definitely do the research of that cookie jar on Amazon or eBay someday, and maybe I'll get it. I mean, yep, and so yep, my uncle, I think he's the one who introduced me of the Wolfman, because he is a Wolfman himself. I mean, not really horror Wolfman. It was just he just likes wolves. I mean, it's like his hobby.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the real thing.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, like some people say, people have hobbies, and so anyway, so how I discovered the film itself. I mean, first, I've never discovered this film until my middle school years, and that was like way after I discovered Abbott Costello Frankenstein, and I just noticed that there was a Wolfman movie that's a standalone film. I mean, of his own, and so I remember like buying this DVD collection of the Wolfman Legacy collection. Like, do you remember those old classic DVD collections?
Yep. They did upgrade them recently. This is the newer version, but I remember them.
Oh yeah, like they even released them on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I have those. Instead, I have the single film and collection, along with Frankenstein, Bride, Invisible Man, Dracula, and
Mm-hmm.
but so yeah, and I got this film on DVD with the whole collection, and I give it a watch, and I kind of like it. I love the film. It's such a classic. I watched it with my dad, and so yeah, it was such a classic film. And then after this film, I also watched the other films too. Like one of my favorite ones I haven't seen in a long time is Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. That one is like a classic. It's like one of the first crossover films ever made.
Yeah.
Yep, that was.
From there, it became the first cinematic shared universe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman because that film always makes me think of King Kong versus Godzilla. Wish I had that figure right here. Hmm. Yeah, so yeah, The Wolfman is such a hairy classic film, and then yeah, so and I just noticed after I watched the original classic, and I noticed that I heard on the news that there was going to be a Wolfman remake in 2010. Yeah, which I never seen before. I seriously, I never seen.
You still haven't seen it?
No, I never seen the one with Anthony Hopkins in it.
Well, it's a more violent than the original, but I think as remakes go, it is actually one of the better ones.
Yeah, and I might give that a watch someday, but no spoilers. And
Oh, don't worry.
yeah, well, and speaking of remakes, I just watched the teaser trailer of the newest remake of The Wolfman that's coming out next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that first before we get more details of the original. I want to talk about this newest remake. So I just watched the trailer just last night, and I gotta say this one is kind of a lot different than I expected. I mean, it's even more scarier. I mean, and and I it's and it was made in the same studio that's directed and made of the Invisible Man remake from 2021, or is it 22?
I think it was just 2020.
No, I never seen that film either. I mean, so yeah, yes, so yeah, this new remake, I'm kind of interested in giving it a watch, and I mean, in the teaser trailer, they never reveal of the Wolfman's design look to it, but
Well,
they did show some images of it, like it has all white hairs. Like you see those images, right?
yeah, and I've spoken at length about them. It doesn't really look like a werewolf to me.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like it looks nothing like a Wolfman. It's nothing like comparing to the 2010 remake or the original 41.
Yeah.
Is yeah, I can say this Wolfman was weird. It's a it kind of looks like a mutated old man sort of looking.
Yeah, like a hobgoblin or a troll that's hiding under a bridge waiting for goats to pass by or something. I could name all kinds of things it looks like, but I never get to a wolf man if I was talking nonstop for like 3 days straight. It's yeah, I don't know what to make of that. The the movie itself looks like it's going to be a very intense horror movie. I mean, I'll give it that, but the fact that they didn't nail the design has me a little worried.
Yeah, me too. It kind of looks like a hobgoblin or something. I mean, it's just yeah. I've been when I go see this film, I'm afraid people are gonna say, "God, that's terrible."
Hmm. Mm, I mean, in the Invisible Man remake, they it was certainly alternative how he becomes invisible, but he's still ultimately an invisible man. For as much as somebody can look like something invisible, they still got that part right anyway.
Yeah, and
Again, alternatively to the original, but you
y-
know,
yeah, I mean, and I bet my uncle is gonna say the same thing about this film. This film's terrible. I mean,
mm,
but anyway, so let's let's get let's get back to the classic 41 film. So how do you discover this film? Like try to remember back then.
I mean, we watched the Universal Monsters movies all out of order, so it's probably very similar. I think I technically got started on Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein because that's the lightest one of the bunch. But
Yeah,
I mean, not that it's the joke that so many have accused it of being over the years, but I think if I had to guess, that was my introduction, and I don't remember exactly when the original Wolfman entered the picture because, you know, I would catch classic movies on TV or in video stores whenever I could. And yes, I was a kid during the age of video stores. Um, I miss those days to a certain degree. But um, yeah, I don't know exactly when it happened, but it, I do know that for as long as I can remember since that point, Wolfman's been a pretty big deal in my life. I
yeah.
mean, I've written books with werewolf characters in them, so you gotta bring that up, don't you? Well, yeah, we gotta increase the sales somehow.
uh, yeah, yeah. Same thing too. I mean, and and I I noticed, like, I know there of werewolves, there is like a true legend of way back centuries. Like, yeah, if it's true that is every person is cursed has a werewolf curse. I think I heard this about this true legend from centuries back then. I mean, let's go back from I think it's the 16th century or I don't remember. I mean,
Oh, tales of people turning into animals, wolves or what have you, have been around for as long as there have been tales about anything.
yeah, even this tale of Little Red Riding Hood, they thought that wolf character was a werewolf, and
One of the Knights of the Round Table was said to have been a werewolf, Sir Marek, I believe.
it,
Um, and there are also some stories. Some people think they might have actually been true stories about alleged werewolves playing in the Greek Olympics way back when.
hmm,
So, and then of course you have the werewolf trials of people like Peter Stump who were like the you know that story?
I believe so, but I'm totally not sure.
Basically, there were a bunch of murders occurring in this one village in like the German area back in the 1500s, late 1500s, mid 1500s, I mean. And they all seemed to indicate that they were attacks from a wolf. People saw this large wolf leaving. So eventually the the people decided they'd had enough. They formed a hunting party. They saw the wolf, they chased after it, but when they finally got it cornered, they didn't corner a wolf, they'd cornered this local guy named Peter Stump who was on all fours, and they thought, well, we had him in our sights the whole time. If we were chasing a wolf and we found this guy here, he's the wolf. And he was put on trial and basically tortured until he confessed to being a werewolf. And he claimed that he transformed because he'd gotten a magic belt from the devil that he put on. It turned him into a wolf, and he would go out and do what werewolves do. And so naturally, he was found guilty and executed. Although a lot of people have said, since he was tortured to get that information out of him, you don't necessarily. It's a little dubious when you get a confession under torture, you know?
Yeah, and and I don't know if this thing was true, but I don't know if this is made up for the film. But is it true that in the legend that a werewolf can only be killed with a silver bullet, or
silver is one of those metals that's been known to harm the supernatural, alongside iron and whatnot. Although the Wolfman, I don't think that was something the Wolfman specifically made up, but a lot of stuff that we think of werewolves today originated with the movie.
Yeah, like in the film, they said that every werewolf only appears when the full moon appears, and but I noticed in the film that Loris Taba is changing every night, not just the full moon.
Well, that's because the first movie doesn't specify full moon. Later movies said full moon. In the first one, they say autumn moon. That when the autumn moon is bright. So it doesn't necessarily have to be full, it just has to be bright.
Oh. Now I get it. It's like I remember in some of the films I just noticed, and I don't think I ever mentioned this in my Abbott Costello Frankenstein podcast, that when Lawrence Talbot was talking to Wilbur on the phone about the not deliver the crates, I mean, before he finished his sentence, he was turning to the window. I mean, I just noticed when he was talking, you could barely see like a flash of light shine on him. It was like through the window of the blinds. That's almost like a sign of the bright full moon.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I just noticed the last time I saw this film.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I actually think the full moon was, well, connecting it to the moon specifically was another one of the movie's inventions. Because, like I said, the real life person, Peter Stump, he didn't need the full moon. He just wore a belt.
Yeah.
Or skinwalkers who wore pelts to transform, things like that.
Yeah. So I want to talk about one of the greatest Wolfman actors who played the Wolfman in many films besides this, the one and only Lon Chaney Jr. I could say he does an amazing job as the Wolfman. I mean, and he really does. I mean, people always remember him as the original werewolf, and I noticed that before he played the Wolfman, he played the Frankenstein monster in The Ghost of Frankenstein.
Yep, he's one of the few actors to play all three of the big ones.
Yeah, and I know he also plays the Frankenstein monster in a small part of Abbott Costello Frankenstein. After he throws Sandra out the window, he only played the monster in that part because of Glenn Strange was sick or broke his leg or his ankle.
He also Lon Chaney Jr. also appeared as the Frankenstein monster in an episode of the Colgate Comedy Hour that Abbott and Costello did. It's usually found on DVD as Abbott and Costello Meet the Creature from the Black Lagoon because it's the one time that they appeared opposite the creature, but the creature's only there for like a few seconds at the very end.
Wow. I've never seen that, but I mean, I wish they could make like a real. I wish they could make a film of those two guys meet the creature.
Yeah, that unfortunately they'd broken up by the time the
Oh
creature
yeah,
movies were happening anyway. So
yeah. They split up, and
yeah, they also never met the Phantom of the Opera either.
which I never seen. I don't know. You talk about the original silent film with Lon Chaney Sr. or it's the '40s remake.
Either one, really. I mean, he's counted as one of the Universal monsters, and I think that would have been a neat idea because Abbott and Costello got started in vaudeville theater. The Phantom of the Opera is based out of a theater. Can you imagine what it would have been like two vaudeville actors on loan from America to a theater in France that's said to be haunted and the Phantom skulking around there? I mean,
Yeah,
it writes itself.
yeah. And I noticed that Lon Chaney Jr. has started his acting career after his father's passing.
Hmm.
It's like he wants to follow in his father's footsteps. Lon Chaney Sr. I mean, the man with the people. Well, first, people call Lon Chaney Sr. the man with 1,000 faces.
Mm,
I, I know he played the original Phantom of the Opera, right?
yep.
And he played the Hunchback, and what else he played in? I
He
mean,
played so many different characters. There was this one, I'm blanking on the title at the moment, but it wasn't one where he had any particular thing done to his face. He looked pretty normal, but he was playing a circus performer who originally he was tricking people into thinking he had no arms, but he was really just keeping them hidden. So he would do everything with his feet. And they would set up shots in such a way that they had an actual circus performer who could tie bows, light a cigarette or anything using entirely their feet the way you would a hand, and they would set shots up in such a way that you couldn't tell that it was two people. So and there was also one, unfortunately it's considered lost, so nobody alive today has seen it, I think, called London After Midnight, where he plays a detective who puts on this frightening monster makeup to basically do vigilante stuff after dark. And that was like that was like one of the first superhero movies, you could argue, because it very similar to what we would see from Batman, the Shadow, the Spider, so many characters like that.
yeah. I mean, his. I was and I just know that the Cheney Senior, he passed away like in the year 1931, the same year that Dracula and Frankenstein came out. Am I correct?
I think maybe.
Or was it the year before that?
Um, I don't know off the top of my head. You? Mm-mm. Well, I know he. I know there was no overlap between his career and his son's career, but
Yeah,
search me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think because I remember I did mention in my Dracula podcast episode to Nathan that Lon Chaney Sr. was going to be was supposed to be the original casting choice for Dracula, but he passed away before filming.
Mm. And Bela Lugosi was campaigning heavy for that role anyway. And Lon Chaney Jr., I believe, campaigned heavily to play the Wolfman. Figured that was going to be his breakout role, and it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Speaking of Bela Lugosi, he is in this film too. Who's
Mm-hmm.
also named his name is Bella in this film. Get it? Bela Lugosi plays Bella,
Yeah.
which is a sign of his real name. Like, yeah,
At least it's
I,
not the Twilight one.
yeah, I remember when I saw this film. Like, at first I didn't recognize him at first, but I did recognize the voice.
Mm. Oh
and
yeah.
now I can see through it with all this the hair and the mustache.
Hmm.
Yeah, he played the gypsy woman's son. I mean, the fortune teller's son.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
one who passes that curse on to Talbot.
mm,
So a small part, but a vital one.
yeah, and I hear that Bela Lugosi was he did actually he wants to play the Wolfman in this film, but the producers passed it to Lon Chaney.
Mm.
Yeah, so imagine Bela Lugosi has all this hair makeup all over him.
Hmm.
Imagine that, and if he was the original Wolfman.
It looked different. I mean, you can always kind of tell if it's him. Like the one time he played the Frankenstein monster, you can tell the shape of his face is totally different from Karloff or Glenn Strange or any of the others. And if you squint just right, you can tell, yeah, that's him.
Yeah, and it's so yeah. Imagine uh, yes, because since he played Dracula, I mean, I know Lon Chaney Sr. was supposed to be the original casting choice for Dracula. I mean, imagine this is like the opposite and an even sort of
Hmm.
thing that because of Lon Chaney's son Junior was uh, that Bella wants to Lugosi wants to take Chaney's place for the monster.
It all just circles around and around, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse, like the and,
Mm.
yeah, and yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean Bella Lugosi does a good job as a fortune teller in this
And
film. I mean, along with this gypsy fortune teller woman who's played by Mara, I can't remember her last name. Yeah,
yeah,
but
everyone knows who you mean.
and I one of my favorite lines that she says like a werewolf can only be killed with a silver bullet or a silver knife or a stick with a silver handle. Like you're insane. I told you I killed a wolf. I play an ordinary wolf. That's one of my favorite lines. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I remember that, and I did recognize that clip scene that they added in this. If you've seen the Sandlot, and they use that clip in a theater scene where people are watching old classic movies, and
Hmm.
they add that in the Sandlot film. Yeah, just that clip. And
Hmm.
hey, you ever seen Sandlot? That one scene
I
during
don't know.
the dog shape.
Actually, that one evaded us so far.
Hmm.
Al-
Yeah,
Although, since we're on the topic of movies, of have we seen it, and we were just talking about Bela Lugosi, have you seen any of the Universal horror movies where Bela Lugosi was the hero?
hmm.
Like
I'm
The Black Cat
I
is
never
one.
seen that.
He's the hero. Boris Karloff's the villain. It claims to be based on the Edgar Allan Poe poem, but it's only got anything to do with the title. Although the plot itself very interesting to see Lugosi in a heroic role. Also, another one of his heroic roles is Chandu, I believe, which is basically somebody with Dracula's mind control powers, but a good guy.
Yeah, and and I just noticed that in the scene when when Bella the fortune teller tells the woman of her future, but he only saw the wolf symbol on her hand of the star.
Hmm.
I don't. Have you mentioned that earlier before about the symbols of the werewolf's next victim?
We haven't brought that up yet, but
He,
there's a lot to discuss there.
yeah, I heard that werewolves that the humans cannot see it, but only people with have werewolf curse can only see it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I like the way how Bella is like transforming into a wolf that off screen. That that was that's kind of like like that one scene of Dracula, like when after Dracula left and this guy is about to say it's like he thought it was some kind of strange dog or a wolf, but
Hmm.
that was off screen. Like, yeah, so that was like I think this was Bela Lugosi's like second uh, part of transforming into a wolf that's like off screen.
Hmm.
But in Dracula, they never showed the wolf.
They never show a lot of things in Dracula. It's kind of surprising when you think about how Lugosi's considered the best Dracula actor, and yet you go back to watch the original movie and you realize we never see him turn into a bat or smoke or do any like specifically vampire-y thing for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because vampires they say they transform into wolves and bats. They said so far in the original film. I mean, it, yeah, I mean, so let's get to how Talbot became a werewolf, the Wolfman himself. One of my favorite moments when the werewolf is attacking the woman and Talbot just tries to stop it and the wolf bit him. Like that was like
Mhm.
one of my favorite moments. It's like for a moment I thought that was Channing finding a real wolf. I thought
Oh,
that, but when I did some research, it turns out it wasn't a wolf after all when they shot that scene.
yeah, it was still a dog though, an incredibly large dog who happened to live on the set and who Cheney kind of adopted after that movie.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I heard. Lon Chaney adopted that dog.
Mhm.
Is and it was actually a German Shepherd, right?
Mhm. I
Eh,
think so.
yeah, when I saw
It was
this,
a beast too.
yeah, and so whenever time you watch this film, when they shot that scene of the German Shepherd, people thought it was like a real wolf, and that they shot at. I mean, the yeah, because you could tell that German Shepherds are almost look like wolves. I mean, a little bit
Mm.
because of the pointy ears and
And the
yeah.
size and everything.
I just wish they could have used like a real wolf, but that would be kind of dangerous because wolves
Yeah.
like will bite you. It's like they're kind of much stronger
Mhm. And
and
unless
then
they've been raised in captivity, you're not gonna have an easy time training one.
yeah, yeah, at least you adopt a puppy one. That way it won't be dangerous and
Mhm.
yeah, I mean when it and also when another shot when Tabo was fighting the wolf and the wolf bit him on the chest. I was surprised he didn't bite him on the arm. I thought that's how you get the curse. If you bit a werewolf, if a wolf bites you on the arm, you have a curse. But no, it turns out he bite him on the chest.
Yeah, bite him anywhere, it's gonna pass on. Although that's another thing that the movie invented, passing it on through a bite. There
Yeah,
there are all sorts of complicated ways to become a werewolf in other folklore.
yeah.
I
I
think
was.
hmm, I
Oh,
almost
you were
wonder
saying.
if the choice of having it be on the chest is almost might have been a reference to the Scarlet Letter.
Yeah,
You know
I,
that story? You must know it. It's a I mean,
honestly, I don't know.
well, it's a whole other thing, but like and never mind. The significance of the whole five-pointed star thing has I mean, there are layers to that we could go into for a while, but the Scarlet Letter thing was just something that popped in my mind. It's not necessarily that important.
Yeah, and it, yeah, well, and I gotta say, like buying a wolf buying a on humans' chests, like that is like gotta hurt.
Hmm.
Cause like I was over there, like that wolf kind of like tore off his heart out. Like,
Yeah,
uh,
that tells you just how much danger he was in and makes it all the stranger that it heals so quickly.
yeah, and it turns out when the wolf is been biting him, if you look carefully, you could easily tell they actually use like a wolf puppet. It's
Yep.
actually like when I saw this scene, it was like they actually built a real life wolf prop of a puppet.
We can't
But
risk having even a trained German Shepherd doing something like that.
yeah, and yeah, I was like, that would be cool. It's like, I mean, there's about that puppet effect, and yeah, they use in the film, and yeah, and then Talbot just destroyed it with his cane that he
Hmm.
bought it from a shop of that from Gwen,
Which
and
has that same 5-pointed star on it and a wolf's head. That's
yeah,
correct.
and I was so jealous that Daniel got the actual chains from the set that I when I did my Abbott Costello Frankenstein.
Yep. He's got all sorts of crazy things that I don't know how he gets them.
Yeah, if he was watching, if he was watching us right now, they, like Daniel, I want to know how you got that chain from the set. Where did you get it? Let me know in the comments below. Yeah, I've always wanted that cane so much. I mean, and I remember, I think it was a year after I first discovered that film. I mean, I remember back in my old hometown state in Georgia, like I was in that little village and I was looking at some old souvenirs, and I did found a cane that has a silver wolf's head on it.
Hmm.
I was gonna buy it, but it turns out once you turn the head, it was a sword.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I was like, "Whoa, not buying."
Wait, but having it turn into a sword was what discouraged you? That's a bonus to me.
Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, that would be too dangerous." I would,
Well, yeah, no one would mess with you, wolf or human.
yeah, so I want to talk about the cast. I mean, about Gwen, the one who gave Talbot the cane, who has been spied through the telescope through her apartment.
Yeah, their relationship is pretty scandalous for 1941.
And I know she's played by I I can't remember the actress's name. I mean, but I know she was. Oh, you're looking it up.
See if it's on the casing here. Might not be. Nope.
But I know she was in a lot of films, and she was she was also in a bunch of films with Lon Chaney, including The Son of Dracula,
Hmm.
and she also was in The Invisible Woman as the Invisible Woman, and
Hmm.
she was also with in Abbott and Costello Hold That Goes, which was released in the same year that The Wolfman came out.
Yep, she was
So
busy that year.
yeah, I remember when me and my dad watched this film, and we both thought we recognized her. I was like, "Hey, she was from Hold That Goes." Eh,
Yeah, if you watch enough of the classic movies, you start to notice familiar faces everywhere. Shem Howard was in Hold That Ghost.
Oh, did you talk about the one with the glasses who was also in The Creature from the Black Lagoon?
No, Shem Howard, the fourth of the Three Stooges.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
technically,
he plays the bartender.
yeah,
He's in that one.
he's in a couple of Abbott and Costello movies actually in bit roles,
Yeah, he was in Buck Privates,
and in the Navy, Africa Screams, quite a few of them actually.
yeah, and
And when I say fourth Stooge, technically he was part of the original team, and then Curly came along, and when Curly stopped, Shemp came back. Just in case anyone tries to correct me, I do know my stuff.
yeah, and maybe I should do a podcast episode of Hold That Ghost someday. Uh, So audience, and if you think that I should do a podcast of Hold That Ghost someday, let me know in the comments below. I mean, I I never get that much audience in the comments that I used to back then. Whatever happened?
I don't know. Something screwy's going on with the YouTube algorithm, I think.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, and let's get back to the characters. So I gotta say that that woman does an amazing job playing as Gwen in this,
Mm.
and I just noticed like that her character was engaged to Patrick Noel's character.
Yep, and Talbot knows that, but he's still going after her.
Yeah, and I remember that he's been trying to ask her out, but she said no. I mean, but he wouldn't listen and says, "I'll be here at 8."
Yep, that's that in itself is kind of foreshadowing because he's already a bit of a wolf before he becomes a lycanthrope. If you catch my meaning.
Yeah, it and so I want to talk about the Patrick Noel's character. I mean, I know it was in that film, but he was also in the sequel Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
That and I gotta say I know Patrick Knowles. He was also in Abbott Costello and Who Done It.
Again, one of those prolific actors that they would call on for just about anything.
Yeah. Yep, and let's talk about there's also another classic monster character who also plays Top's father is the Invisible Man himself, Claw Raids.
Indeed.
I say he does an amazing job as Top's father, and I mean, I like it. I know that when I saw this film, I thought I recognized the voice, and I was like, hey, that's the Invisible Man, and he was.
Couldn't
And
recognize him by his face, after all.
and he also made a little small cameo in Abbott Costello Meet the Invisible Man, but in a framed picture photo of him.
Yep. Which officially makes it part of the series.
Yeah, and I imagine imagine he plays Griffin in this film in the Wolfman is like let's just say it's Loris Talbot. Larry Talbot is the son of the Invisible Man. Imagine that is like a sequel to.
Yep. And he was. Well, Larry Talbot was the son of the Wolfman. Is the son of the Invisible Man who was bitten by Dracula. There's so many different connections.
Yeah, and you remember that one scene, and after some visitors and the doctor visit Talbot after the fight with the wolf, and then suddenly Talbot is trying to show him the wound that the wolf bit him, but no wound has ever shown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's all sorts of things in this movie that are supposed to make you question what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when Talbot said that people think he's crazy, but after get this, here's like a Clawways lines and Talbot's line saying, here, just imagine it. Oh, but they treat me think I'm crazy. Like, you're crazy to know who I am, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah, get it?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta do the Invisible Man episode someday. And if you know, October's almost over, and yeah, so what other characters do you know in the film? I mean, you know the Egyptian woman.
Yeah, Moldova, right? I think we already mentioned her.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the primary ones. That, of course, you have the other characters who come in and out. One character who's technically not in the movie, but he's significant to the plot, is Lawrence's brother.
Oh
Who,
yeah, they did mention it in the beginning after
yeah,
Taba is coming home from America.
yeah, he passed away, and that's why he's coming back. It's part to try and make amends with his father, restore the family heritage. And then, of course, all this stuff happens.
Yeah.
He turns
It,
into this guy.
yeah, it turns out that his brother passed away from a hunting accident.
Mm-hmm.
It, yeah, and the one thing I was so shocked. I mean, they show a photo of his brother that looks exactly like Taba Lon Chaney. I was
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, I don't know if it's true. Are there like twins in the film? Or
Well, I mean, at the very least, we can suppose a strong family resemblance.
mm, yeah,
Well, neither of them look like their father. That must mean they look like their mother.
yeah, yeah. I mentioned they have a painting of their mother, but it was really launching all wearing all girl wig and a makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now that image is in your head forever, folks. Happy Halloween.
So so let's talk about the wolf, the design and makeup of the Wolfman itself.
By Jack Pierce.
Yep, Jack Pierce himself did all this amazing effects and makeup. I mean, how did you feel about this Wolfman design?
I think it's an overall good design. I mean, like I said, I've got a rendition of it here. This is the Jada Toys figure. And again, this is one of those things that kind of defined the look for generations to come. I think it's a good spin on the premise of being a wolf man, because still clearly got those human features to him, but stuff like the nose, the pronounced underbite, obviously the excess fur and the claws and everything. This guy's got flat feet because he's supposed to stand, but the actual way he does it, Chaney's actually up on his toes to sort of make it look more like his legs are canine. So
Yeah,
so it's got that good fusion. And like I said, there would be variations of it over the years. Obviously, the makeup would get a little more comfortable for him, easier to apply, but you know,
yeah,
it always remained recognizable. I'm sure you would agree, right?
yeah. I can say all this makeup on is kind of more. It's kind of makes it uncomfortable for Cheney to wear. I mean, because all the hair makeup, it kind of gives it. It kind of itches Cheney a little. All the
Mm.
hair and all that. I mean, I have
See,
no
for
idea
me, it's
what the
built
hair
in.
is made of.
For me, it's built in, and I believe I seem to recall hearing at one point it was yak hair. I don't know if I'm remembering that from something else, but I could swear that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, and I love how they did the special effects of how they shot Taba's feet. That his hair became began to grow, and then it's suddenly it grows into wolf feet
Yeah,
with
like I
or
said, he's
paw
more.
feet.
I mean, this is stylized, but he's more on his toes, so that is this part would be his actual heel, and he's walking around like that. This is the
Well,
Benedict Wolfman.
so he's not like so those feet weren't actually his feet; those were just high heels. So he's just
Sort of. Like I
yeah,
said, walking around on his toes.
yeah. I mean, I couldn't tell like that scene when he got up and he started walking on his toes. I don't know if he's like really walking on his toes or he's just wearing some high heel shoes that disguise as
I,
wolf feet.
I think we'd be able to see the heels.
Yeah, I gotta take a look back at this
Yeah.
film. I mean, this.
And if you want to talk about discomfort, the fact that they were doing the on-screen transformations and he just had to sit there for hours holding one pose.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this film they never did a stop motion transformation close up of his face. not in
No,
the
not
original
in
film, but
space.
they did that in some other films. I mean, I bet that it took them like hours to do that.
Hmm.
I
And
remember,
like, I remember one of the movies, he's supposed to be laying on a pillow and transforming, but in order to make sure the pillow didn't get messed up in case he did move, it was actually made of concrete. So,
yeah, I remember I did mention in my Epic Kasumi Frankenstein podcast. I mean, when they did some transformation shots of his face, all the makeup. In fact, I think they say they took them like 6 hours to put on that makeup when they're filming this shot.
and that was one of the easier ones to do. That was after they'd streamlined it a little. So
Yeah,
imagine this first one.
yeah. I mean,
We suffer for our art.
and I remember they did update the. Uh, I mean, they did updated the makeup of the Wolfman in a few films. I mean, I think Jack Pierce did some. I mean, I
Hmm.
remember in like in the few films they actually updated the face. No, in in the original film they actually added like a little wolf nose of
Hmm.
Chain's face. I mean, they had some hair on him. I, I think they made that more uncomfortable for Chain to wear, but I think in the new films that Chain is continue as the Wolfman. I mean, for this new makeup effect, I mean, I think they actually made a mask for Chain to wear that kind of makes it much better and comfortable for Chain
Yeah.
to wear.
Yep. Although still took a while. And if they were doing the gradual transformation shots of the face, that meant applying certain parts, then removing them, putting more on, removing that, then putting the mask on. Unless it was all just supposed to be one. But yeah. Uh this is one of those that the Wolfman back then was one of those roles where if you got done with it and you still wanted to be an actor, then you were really serious.
Yeah, I mean, and I know the makeup for Werewolf of London. That I bet that makeup is much more easier and faster to put on.
Yeah, because it was mostly from the nose up with a little bit of dentures for the teeth. Not nearly as hairy, um, but yeah, definitely not as extensive in that one. And actually, to kind of circle it back around, when you see the remake, you may notice that it is just as much a remake of Werewolf of London as it is of The Wolfman. There are elements from both movies sprinkled throughout, but I won't say which ones.
Yeah, and it's so and oh wow, it's been 53 minutes already.
Time
Time
flies.
fly, Jinx, and so and there's this one scene that I don't get. I mean, after the hunters were searching for Talbot, but Talbot caught in a trap when he was a werewolf,
Mm-hmm.
and the gypsy woman just appeared, and then I think she lays some kind of spell on him to reverse him back. I I mean what she did. I mean, she could have done something like that to her son.
Maybe she does, but I mean, it's probably only temporary.
Yeah, I mean, and she did the same thing in the ending too. After Talbot died, I mean, actually after he was killed by his own father, that he
Mm.
didn't know that was him. And
Yep, that's what often gets the movie compared to the Greek tragedies. The the hero the hero is victim to forces beyond his control and meets a painfully ironic fate.
yeah, I mean, and it turns out that uh, Lon Chaney's character he played the Wolfman, but he is the same character, Loris Talbot, and they used the same name in the sequels. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, and other kinds of sequels. And 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 he's always played that same character, but his character is always worried that he wanted to die, but in the original film that he died in the end. That people in the audience thought he really died at the end of this, but in the
Mhm.
sequel he's coming back. It turns out werewolves can't die.
Not the usual ways. He's
Yeah,
he's looking for one though. Although it seems like by the time we get to Abbott and Costello, he's sort of moved over into the idea of if I can't die, I'm at least going to be fighting the other guys who can't die. So that's why he's opposing Dracula and Frankenstein.
yeah, and
You basically like the groundwork for so many different Marvel superheroes, like the Incredible Hulk and Ghost Rider and those guys, laid out with the Wolfman right there.
yeah, and and I just and I love the music too in this. That was made by Hans.
Frank Skinner and Hans J. Salter. I've got this isn't the original soundtrack, but this is the Monster Music CD performed by the Moscow Symphony Orchestra. It's got the soundtracks for Son of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man Returns, and The Wolfman.
And I love the music in this. I mean, and I know Hans J. Sinner he was the same guy who did the music for The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
And they used that stock footage music for King Kong versus Godzilla. Wish I'll get to the creature episode in my next one.
I was actually hoping you bring up the music because did you notice there's a particular music cue that Danny Elfman would later use in the Tim Burton Batman movie?
Oh yeah, that one scene when Talbot was trying to see Gwen and through the window.
And it goes da 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 da, which would later become the Batman theme. Da 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 da.
Yeah, that I noticed, and which I never saw Batman. Not a Batman type of guy.
You should like you like monster movies. Tim Burton's two Batman movies are basically monster movies. They're gothic horror. They just happen to have a superhero in them. And like I said, the music lifted straight from the Wolfman.
Yeah, and yes. So I think we're just about that time. And so, what are your thoughts about this film?
Overall, I mean, it's a classic for a reason, right? And you know, if you get started talking about the themes, you can talk about so much. I mean, the fact that it was released in 1941 and the plot is about a guy who's hunting down people who have a star on them. I mean, not a coincidence there. And but that's not even the only way to interpret it. You can interpret it as Talbot just going gradually losing his mind, or Talbot at the mercy of forces beyond his control. He's such a fascinating character, and I don't think it's any wonder why he sort of became the focal point where Universal's many disconnected monster movies became a universe. He was the one they used to say, oh, Frankenstein exists alongside the Wolfman. Now so does Dracula. And then later, when they started doing the novels as sequels, they would say, we're also bringing in the creature. We're also bringing in all these 50s sci-fi movies we've been talking about. The Return of the Wolfman is the book they did that, but unfortunately it's out of print these days. There is a copy on Amazon, but you have to pay like $500 for it, and I'm not doing that. Yeah, I wish
that's crazy.
I wish they would put it back in print because I really want to read it. It's the book that kind of explains how all the different movies fit together. Like, why is Talbot cured of his lycanthropy in House of Dracula, but he's a werewolf again in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein? How do the creature and the mummy and all these guys fit into it? It's all there in that book. I want to read it so badly, but it's way out of my price range. It's way out of anybody's price range.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, in a weird way, the Wolfman is to Universal monsters what Nick Fury is to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's the guy who popped up in all the different movies. He's the focal point. But what about you though?
Yeah, uh, well, my thoughts about this. I mean, it is a really classic film. I love it so much. I like whatever time I want to watch this film, I usually watch this with my dad or uncle. To me, I want to watch it with my uncle someday. Every time I visit my grandmother, because he always visits my grandma, and yeah, I would definitely watch this film with him because my uncle is the Wolfman.
So you said.
Yeah, and I would definitely give this film like a 9 out of 10. And I know this film, it wasn't the first werewolf movies from Universal, but a Werewolf of London was the first Universal werewolf films.
And the first time the Vasquez rocks appeared on screen. You know those, right? That weird looking rock formation that's in all the old sci-fi movies.
No,
you
I
would know them
noticed.
if you saw them. Like, you've watched the original Power Rangers, right?
I never watched Power Rangers.
Really? Okay. You've watched the original Star Trek?
I never watched Star Trek either.
Boy, they've been used so much, usually for alien planets, because they look like something that, even though they're on Earth, they shouldn't. They look like they should be in an alien landscape. Planet of Dinosaurs. Did you see?
I heard of it, but I never seen it.
Okay, there are just so many. But you saw you saw Werewolf of London, the Himalayas that they're supposed to be at. Those are the Vasquez rocks. First time they appeared in a movie, and they've appeared in all sorts of sci-fi movies ever since.
Yeah, like, well, I will give those film a watch someday in the future. I mean, so yeah, I just love this film, The Wolfman, and if I watched this alone and my dog was if my dog saw me watching this, he would definitely come in and watch this film. I mean, imagine if he saw the Wolfman appears in his first appearance, he would definitely bark at it. And
that video would go viral, I assure you.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you for joining me in this episode, Ryan and Ami and Sazzy. Yeah,
You're quite welcome.
I hope I say your name right, Snazzy or Sazzy or
Snazzy.
Yeah. I want to thank you two so much for joining me in this episode, and it was really give me great pleasure to do this, and I know October's almost over, and I got one more Universal monster to talk about, the creature, and I'll be talking about in my next episode, and hopefully I'll do the Invisible Man or Bride of Frankenstein someday in the future.
You'll be commemorating 70 years of the creature because he's as old as Godzilla.
Yeah, and this is the creature's 70th anniversary year. Yeah, and well, thank you for joining me, Ami, and I want to say to everyone, have a happy Halloween.